everybody, welcome to another video. So I've literally just taken it out of the box, a, would you call that Saigaole, something like that. It's a they call it a HIQ W400 URP, or why they called it that I don't know, but what struck me is it seems like a pretty loose but quite reasonable copy of the Anest Iwata Kiwami4. Now, for those that don't know, the Anest Iwata Kiwami4, which is equivalent to the W400 BA4J, the Iwata W400 BA4J, was effectively withdrawn from sale. I have no insider knowledge, but I'm pretty sure the reason this thing was withdrawn from sale was because it was relatively cheap, and I think you'll find it was upsetting the European market, the US market, and pretty much any market apart from the Asian market, because it was effectively undercutting the W400 by a great deal. So they removed it from sale. You can still get the Kiwami4 WBX and WB, which traditionally has always sold for more money anyway, because it's the split tip design, whereas this isn't. This is a standard BA4J cap and just a standard tip. So me and probably about 3 or 4 other people have been swapping messages recently, and they've been buying is it Asturus, I think, make a gun that looks similar. It's not color coded the same as the Kiwami, which is what this one is, but it looks similar, and they've been sending me spray patterns to try and find a Kiwami4 replacement, basically. And this, I think, is probably the closest, certainly looking wise, than any of them. I've literally just got it, so I haven't used it. If you're expecting to see me spray with it in this video, you've got the wrong video. I will get a video up once I've had a chance to use it and, you know, appraise it properly. But what I wanted to do was run over what the differences are, because it looks very, very similar. So we're going to look at the differences. I have had it out the box, and I have actually taken the needle out and things like that, just so that I know what I'm talking about before I actually start talking to you in the video. Otherwise it gets very tedious and very slow and clunky, I think you would call it. So one of the good things about the Kiwami4 is it actually uses very little air. It's quite a good gun for the amount of money it is, and it actually uses very little air. So I've been on a bit of a mission really to find a replacement for the Kiwami4, something that I can recommend for people that used to be about 160, 170 GB pounds, used to be about 200, I think, 210 US dollars. Relatively good gun, low on air consumption, you know, fits the bill perfectly for a lot of people. So let's have a look at this and see what it is. First off, something that does make you laugh, and you've got to like the Chinese for their ingenuity. They've put Saigaole, or however you want to say it. I'm dyslexic, so I'm not very good at spelling anyway, but I think it's pronounced something like Saigaole, which is fine. I mean, it's playing on the Saigaole name, which is Spanish. It's a Japanese take of a gun, i.e. it's a copy of a Japanese gun, and they've put on it, I don't know whether you can actually see that, German technology, which is really funny because it's like put another dimension to it, which is totally alien, totally wrong. But anyway, it is what it is. So this is the box you get it in, and you get a standard fare, you get a cup, and you get a spanner, etc. But looking on the box, it has a picture there, which is obviously the one I've got. But when you turn it around the other way, they obviously do a HVLP version. This one isn't. This is what they call the URP, so RP, Transtech, standard version, non-HVLP. So just keep a lookout, because they may well make it in HVLP. Probably better to buy this one, because the HVLP one, if it's true HVLP, will use a lot more air, because we're going to try and see whether this uses the same amount of air as this, a 2 bar This I use at 2 bar. This I haven't got a clue, but I would think probably 2 bar will probably give us somewhere where we want to be. Just looking at the cup, just a quick one. I mean, it's a pretty good quality cup. And I'm not even going to show you the cup because I know a lot of people use PPS adapters. But the reason I wanted to get the cup out, it just reminds me to tell you that this is, I can't remember the thread on this, but it's a different thread anyway. This is a pretty standard thread for quite a lot of Japanese guns. It's a 16mm by 1.5mm, which is obviously the cup you get with it. Now, if you don't want to use the cup, you would use an S9 adapter. So whether you use PPS 1 or 2, just look for the equivalent to a number 9 or an S9. S9 is in the PPS 2 and you'll be able to find the part number. But that's what it fits. It's exactly the same as the Porpoise guns. I've got quite a few of the Porpoise guns. A lot of those are, and a lot of the Chinese guns are actually seem to be standardising on this 16mm by a 1.6mm pitch. So that's the gun. What we're going to do is just have a look. We're going to just quickly take it apart. I'll show you what components are the same as the Kiwami. There's an obvious difference in the body, which we'll get to in a minute. And we'll do a spray out to see whether the pattern's the same. Because if the pattern's very similar, then I think we've got something here that's probably going to be very similar. As I say, I've literally just got it, and I thought it'd be a good idea to get a video up. I was going to narrate an older video I had somewhere, and I thought, no, just get this out and give you guys a chance to look at it, and we'll go from there. But I will get some proper reviews up. But what I did notice first off, because the reason I say that is because this could be handy for spare parts for people, because the Kiwami, or you can still get parts for it. There's no problem getting parts for it. As I say, they don't make it, but parts are quite expensive. If, for example, you was to use this, lose this is fully interchangeable. So for the price of this, which is probably going to be about $40 US, you would probably get one of these guns. Now, I paid $44 US plus UK tax, which brought it up to $56 US. So it's not expensive, although looking today, they're about 62. So the price does vary and you get offers coming along, etc., don't you? So the cap, and the reason I mentioned this knob at the back, sorry to go off on another tangent, is I actually lost one off of one of my Meiji ones. It was while I was doing a video, so you will see it on a future video. But I had this wound out to the maximum, and I obviously had it on the last bit of thread, and by doing that it must have just worked loose and it shot off across the workshop, and I can't find it, so I've got to get a new one. So I know people do lose things, they drop them or whatever, or damage them. So we're just going to look at what's compatible, and then as I say, we're going to do a spray out, and I'll also try and do an air test, and we'll see whether this actually runs for about the same time as this one, because as I say, this is particularly good on air. So looking at the caps have the same idea, which is different to the original Iwatas. If you look at the W400 version or the LPH400 version, the actual sealing ring sits inside here, so it sits around here flat. So when you put the gun on, it rests flat against the gun, and that's what gives you the seal. The newer versions, the Kiwamis, the Series 2 LS400s and WS400s all do the same thing. You've got the actual sealing ring here, which is on the side, so it's actually on the side of the lip. So what it does is it actually seals at this part of the gun, around this part here, because this part is now higher than the smaller than the threads, so it allows that to go around it. Now, I did try the Kiwami, so this is the Kiwami cap, this is the Saigaole. I did try it on it. I think the thread pitch is the same, but the actual diameter is slightly different around here. And the upshot of it is that the Kiwami cap won't fit on the Saigaole, but the Saigaole cap does fit on the Kiwami. So I expect the Saigaole cap is just slightly bigger than the Kiwami cap, but it seems to go on there and it seems to seal. So it doesn't, it doesn't move around or anything like that. So that could be an interchangeable part, but I'd have to do more digging around on that. But as I say, the end cap here is completely interchangeable. I have done it. They're exactly the same threads, same length, same diameter, everything is exactly the same. Colour's slightly different in that the Chinese one is a bit more of a lighter colour, but you know, it's better than buying an Iwata one for, you know, 30-40 US dollars or whatever it is. So the needles are exactly the same. The springs are also exactly the same. The only difference is that you've got a plastic insert there, which just makes it more smoother. When you're putting this on, it's smoother that it runs against a piece of plastic, rather than a slightly jagged in that, you know, it's still an open part of the spring, although it is obviously closed recess there. It just makes it feel a bit more smoother to have that bit of plastic on it. But the actual needles, as far as I can see, are exactly, let's keep them like that, no, keep them that way, that's it, are exactly the same. The taper is the same. I've put a pair of Mitutoyo verniers along here, so good quality verniers, and the 2.92 I think it is, they're exactly the same as each other. So those are fully interchangeable. They're exactly the same length. Everything seems to me exactly the same. So it's worth remembering if ever you need a needle. So coming to the tip, now this had the most, the tightest tip I've ever known on a spray gun. And anybody that's had an R100 wrong pen gun will realise that that's not particularly impressive really, because it's just so difficult to get it off. Anyway, I did get it off, and these tips are also fully interchangeable. They look exactly the same as well, in that the air holes are the same diameter. So if you look there, hopefully you can see the air holes are exactly the same diameter. It's a direct copy. Hopefully you can see there. Get away from my eyes. It's got this iris thing that it just keeps looking at eyes, but hopefully you can see there they are exactly the same, and they are fully interchangeable. I have got the what's that, that's the Iwata one, so I'm going to put the non-Iwata in the Iwata. I have done this already, so I know that nothing's going to happen, and it does seal fine. So you've also got the opportunity to get a tip if you want a tip, and vice versa. Obviously the Iwata one, as you probably would expect, screws into there nicely. I haven't gone into any other parts at the moment because I want to use it rather than take it to bits. But looking at the inside of the body, they look very, very similarly made. I can't see any difference. The inlet holes at the top for the fluid material are exactly the same. Yeah, everything looks more or less the same. I can't go in there and measure it because you can't actually get access to it. So I think we may well have a good copy here. So the air consumption will be a thing that will be a big plus if it's the same. And we'll have a look at the pattern. If the pattern's very similar, then yeah, I mean, I think we've got what will probably turn out to be an okay gun for reasonable money. Anyway, guys, we're going to put the camera on the head. We're going to do a couple of patterns, get a bit of fluid through both of them, see what sort of pattern we get, and we do the air consumption test, as I said. So see you in a second when I've got the camera on my head. So we'll start off with the Kiwami4. All the controls are open, so the fan is fully open, the fluid is fully open, and the onboard air control is obviously fully open to give us an accurate reading at the gauge. I'm going to set it to 2 bar, so hopefully you can see that 2 bar 0.20, which is 2 bar, which is about 29 psi. We've put a it's actually a clear coat in here with a dye, so that it will give us a little bit more definition on white paper. This is obviously 1 foot 6 inches each side of the center line, so it'll give you an idea of the size of it. I'm going to use an Iwata spanner as our distance guide. Our distance is 7 inches. That's the length of the spanner. So 175 mil, and that will give us an idea. So now I'm going to move this before it runs, because this isn't, although this is a clear coat, it hasn't actually got a hardener on it. So what have we got? We've got reasonable size pattern. So what I'll do is I'll do the other one, and then we'll obviously have an idea of whether they're the same or different. So now that we're with the Saigaole, or however you say it, the URP, same fluid, all the conditions are exactly the same. I'm going to use it at 2 bar. As I said in the introduction part of the video, I don't know what this will run at best, but I would think 2 bar would probably give us a reasonable idea. The cap has got a larger hole at the front, smaller hole at the back, which is the same as the cap on the Kiwami4, but the spacing is slightly different. So well, anyway, all I can do is see what kind of a pattern it gives us. So we're going to set it to 2 bar again, so you can see it's actually running at 2 bar. Now this is the same gauge, hasn't been altered in any way, so from that we can deduce that this is using exactly the same area as the Kiwami4, which is about 7.5 to maybe 8, well about 7.7 they say, and that's probably about right. 7.7 CFM, so it will run on a smaller compressor, actually better than the R500, because the R500 you need to use at about 2.5 bar. As I say, I'm not sure what this is going to be yet. Certainly it uses the same amount of air at 2 bar, or 29 psi, as the Kiwami4 is. Let's see what sort of pattern we get. Again, obviously all the controls are fully open, everything's fully open, as you would expect. That there, so 7 inches away, 175 mil. Oh yes, mind you, it's fluttering a bit. Why is that fluttering? Let's have a quick look. Let's get this down so the pattern's right. I reckon the tip's probably not quite tight enough. Let's tighten that tip up and see if we can get rid of that fluttering. But the pattern is exactly the same. Where's my spanner? Over there. It's just air coming in, I think. So let's tighten that tip up. I don't do the tips up too tight because I don't like doing them up too tight. If I don't need it, it's pointless actually doing it. Right, let's just see if we can get rid of that fluttering. We'll know anyway in a second, as soon as we pull that. See if we get the fluttering. That's better. No, still got it, haven't we? Let's press it down slightly. No, it's still sputtering, isn't it? Why is that doing that? Unless you really need to do the tip up tight, which seems a bit silly really, but we'll find out. There we go, last little bit. Make sure that's sealed up nice and tight. Right, here we go again. That's better. That's better. It's going to start spluttering now because we're going to run out of fluid. But that's got it. So it's just the tip wasn't tight enough, which I suspected. So that's obviously why they do the tip up tight, because it needs it. Once you've used it a few times, I think you'll find you probably won't need to do it up as tight, because it will actually create a seating area for the tip. As you bring the tip down, the threads stretch slightly, and it makes its own seat, and it normally seals better after a few in and outs. But yeah, I think we actually may well have a, certainly looking at that, that's the Kiwami, that's the Saigaole. Whoa, very, very similar pattern. and as I say, it's running at the same air pressure, so it's using the same air pressure. All I've got to do now is see whether it actually sprays okay at 2 bar with clear coat. Because that's always the problem with some of the cheaper guns. You need to up them a bit to get the pressure. But yeah, anyway, we're certainly nearly getting there. I won't bother doing an air test because it will be the same, because we know that from the gauge. We just swapped the gauge over without adjusting it, and it was pulling the same pressure, which means that the resistance is exactly the same inside, which means it's using the same amount of air pressure. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video as always. Then see you soon. Bye bye.